Hey guys, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. We're back at it. Hey, before we get started on our live adaptation of The Eye of the World, I want to thank all of our subs that we hit. Hey guys, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
We got a little
We're
reverb
back
there.
at it.
Sorry, everybody.
Hey, before we get started on our live adaptation of The Eye of the World, I want to thank all of our subs that we hit. Hey guys, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
We got a little
We're
reverb
back
there.
at it.
Sorry, everybody.
Hey, before we get started on our live adaptation there you go. This is live television. That happens. So just wanted, before we get started, I want to thank our 500 subs. We finally hit 500 this week. That was really cool. I appreciate you guys coming back and watching this and participating. Yeah, claps from around the panel. And by the way, if you have not been watching, let me catch you up. We have already made it to Shadar Logoth. We're doing a live adaptation, scene by scene. We're walking through each scene and making sure that these are scenes that we want to keep or cut or kill, however you want to think about it, and what other scenes we might want to bring into the show, and maybe a different focus from point of view. You know, I watched some comments on YouTube that were in some of the videos, and some users brought up the idea that, you know, the focus should be on, you know, the characterization, the world building and such. Absolutely agree. And it's nice to know as we're going through these scenes that we can talk about those ideas. So let's get into it. We're starting with Shadar Logoth here. So let me introduce my panel. Today we have Mary back with us. Mary, it's awesome to see you again. Thanks for showing back up. And you all know Todd, right? Todd, I appreciate having you both here. And as a special guest today, because Tal couldn't be with us, we have Ted back, who was with us last week. And if you remember, Ted is he's done a lot of beta reading for Brandon, but he happens to know the Wheel of Time really well and the Cosmere really well. But we won't be addressing the Cosmere just yet. Maybe we'll do a special show with you and I, Ted, and we'll do some Cosmere discussions, but not now. Right onto the Wheel of Time, guys. Let's jump into it. Mary, let's catch you up really quick. If you don't know exactly where we're at, I think you watched us, even though you weren't able to participate. We're in Shadar Logoth. Myrddraal has just kind of broken our crew up. And now this is where, from an adaptation standpoint, we have to ask ourselves this question, which is this breakup into what becomes three groups a necessary thing for the story that we're building, for all the plots that we're building here? Or do we need to get to Camelin a bit faster? Because, and before you guys answer this question, the name of the third episode that we know about is A Place of Safety. Now, there isn't a chapter title called A Place of Safety. I think it's something to the effect of Shelter from the Storm. It happens later. So I think, in my opinion, A Place of Safety will at least get us to the Stedding about 10 chapters later from where we're at right now. So, you know, if we have to get there or beyond, you know, do we need to consider consolidating these three breakups into two groups? Or do you three believe that we need the separation that we're about to experience?
I actually think we do. I think that it is, we lose a lot of character development if we don't have the characters split up. If they have to get out on their own in the wide world as these isolated farm folk having to deal with everybody trying to kill them, that builds character, you know? And you have to, it also will depend on if they're going to continue the theme of who's the dragon, and who's the important one, who are the dark friends and the evil forces really after. Is it all of them? Is it one of them? We don't know. And that adds to kind of the paranoia and the mania, and it makes for great television. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, I just want to quickly jump in there. I agree with the idea of not knowing that information. And of course, anyone that's watching us, there's going to be somewhat of spoilers. We're not going to seek to ruin the books for you, but we're going to be bringing up themes and plots and ideas that come in later in the books and why we believe that we have to keep a scene. And I agree with that idea of these isolated, country folk out there now on their own. I like that as a reason for keeping the split as Jordan has written it. Todd or Ted, do you guys disagree, or do you like keeping that split?
I like Matt and Rand together, and I like Perrin's whole arc. I think we can do without Nynaeve, Moraine, and Lan if we're going to skip any of that. I think they're not really necessary to what's going on, because we really have to find out about Perrin and the wolves And I think we have to go through the whole experience with the Dark Friends and everything that happens to Matt and Rand on their trip to Camelin. I mean, not everything, but you have to see what they went through.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I do agree that we'll notice here as we go scene by scene that the Lan, Moraine, Nynaeve split is not that significant, even from a number of scenes perspective. So I don't think that it would take a lot of time out of from the other two storylines that are going on. Ted, did you disagree with that, or are you good with this split?
I think it should be more focused on Rand, Matt, and Thom, because they introduced Bayle Domon on their trip, and Whitebridge. And then also, obviously, you have the wolves, as Todd alluded to. But there's a big problem with leaving out Moraine and Lan and Nynaeve, and that's the whole focus of the series apparently is on Moraine. You can't just shuffle her to the background. Like, they don't really do many important things.
Yeah, no, you're both bringing up an interesting point here, which is, how much of this idea of a focus on Moraine might change some of this. But I still believe, because she doesn't have too many, there's no really huge scenes here, and which we'll cover shortly. I still believe that they can handle that, still give some focus there. We don't want to lose her completely, but so I think it sounds like we're all kind of into this idea. Shadar comes in, they're all breaking up. Now let's make our way out into chapter 20. From the perspective, obviously, all of us want, these scenes in Shadar Logoth when they're being chased and such, and they'll do plenty of those, I imagine. So let's make our way out of Shadar Logoth at this point. And by the way, if you're watching, remember this is a live call-in show. You can call us at 1-313-TALK-WATT, or that's 1-313-825-5968. 1-313-825-5968. Now we haven't gone too far into the show. Before we jump there, we do have somebody calling in. Let's not make him wait too long. So it's Lancer from California. Let's bring him in and see what he has to say. Hey, Lancer from California. Welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thanks for taking my call, everybody.
Absolutely. So we haven't covered too much yet of the show. What are you feeling about what we at least have said up this point as far as keeping that split and keeping those three storylines? And what are you looking forward to in this kind of episode of chapter 20 to 30? What are the big scenes that you think are important?
Well, you need to keep the split, because we can go off of the two major. If you go off of the two major adaptations that we have, Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones gave us the split, when Arya left to go to the Wall, and you have pretty much all the Stark kids doing what they had to do. This made you endeared to those characters. I mean, it's the same way for Wheel of Time. You have to hate Matt to love Matt. You have to find out about Perrin's neurotic brain trying to figure out everything in order to endear him when he gets to the end. And you have to go through, pretty much Nynaeve's just, I need to save the world thing in order to either hate her or love her. And the same thing with Egwene. And if you go the route of what Harry Potter did, of basically making it completely Harry-centric, you lose a lot, which is why I hated the third movie, but we won't go into that. That's a different story. So you need to keep the separation so that you do, like, firstly, I'm sorry, miss, I missed your name, my bad, don't kill me. But you have to have the character building that was going on so you can endear yourself to those characters. And whether or not Moraine is the lead or not, that's not, I mean, yes, it's important, but yeah. And to answer your second question, I want to see Perrin kill somebody for killing the wolves, and I just want to see the whole telepathic wolf thing, how they're going to do that. I'm curious to see how they're going to introduce that into the live action.
Yeah. This is these 10 chapters. There's a lot that happens here, and I know we're all anxious to get towards those pieces here. But I think you're right, and I think everyone on the panel so far is agreeing with this, which is this is a key moment in any series where then our kind of our little group of heroes here are splitting off. They don't know enough about the world. They're losing some of the leadership figures that they've kind of gotten used to here, and now they're engaging with people and they don't know exactly what to do. And that is almost, which I'm going to bring this up shortly as you listen to us, Lancer. I'm going to bring this topic up, which is the topic of Thom. And so I don't want to just jump into that yet. Let's nail it down from a scene perspective. But I think maybe there's a case to be made that he isn't here potentially. In other words, that maybe leaves Rand and Matt at a greater disadvantage than they're at. But hey, by the way, thank you very much for calling into the show. Really appreciate it. Hope you'll keep on listening and keep calling in and sharing your opinion. And thanks for being our first caller. You jumped on really quick. I'm glad everyone's kind of getting used to it and feeling comfortable calling in. So thanks, Lancer, for your opinion.
Hey, thanks, guys. Awesome.
Yeah, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So yeah, let's jump into this. In chapter 20, we have Rand and Matt, Rand meets up with Matt in chapter 20, and at the very end of this, he and Thom and Matt start fleeing down river, and they get to this part with the spray and Bayle Domon. So do we have to, when it comes to this piece, I like this moment a lot, and I'd be disappointed if they cut this. Is there something about this boat and this meeting with Bayle that has to happen? In other words, can they just end up scurrying towards Whitebridge without it, or do you guys feel like this is a huge moment in the show and an important thing for Rand, Matt, and Thom to all be on the boat together?
I think it is. I think it introduces a lot of future plot concepts. Bayle Domon, who's carrying seals and other fancy stuff.
So you like it because you like him. So you're saying we need him. Do we need him? I mean, let's say they have the boat, but do we need him on the boat?
Well, who else would we have?
Well, see, this is a good question. The secondary character notion of he's an interesting individual. We learn a lot more about him when they're on the boat here. But that's a kind of a question that I want you guys to, and because we're going to be coming back and forth to him from scene perspective, is do we need him? But is there any reason for us not to have the trip down this river towards Whitebridge? Is there anybody that has a feeling like strongly against this and that thinks from an adaptation standpoint we should just get them to Whitebridge quicker?
It would only make sense to get rid of the boat scene if you're not going to include the Tower of Genji, which I would entertain, by the way, but I know I'm in the minority there. But Bayle Domon is he's an interesting character in that he keeps showing up no matter where they go. So, and that's kind of one of Robert Jordan's hallmarks in here is there are close to 2,000 characters in here, but they keep showing up and they're interwoven. And I think, losing Bayle Domon, you're losing some of the charm of the story. And I don't know if that is worth getting rid of the character or getting rid of that scene.
Yeah, it's one of these tough things. I'm sure they're asking themselves how many of these secondary, like you bring this up, Mary, how many of these secondary characters can we keep? That we name them, because you don't want them coming in from a two-dimensional standpoint, right? You don't want him just like he gets like a second on screen and it's like, yay, we have our character. We want to know more. We want to know more about him, right? At this point, like he comes on screen, we're going to want him to, and like you said, he's definitely interwoven into the story in many places. So they're going to want to give some depth to him. So he's going to need some screen time. And that's going to be maybe time away from other things. So,
and he doesn't need a lot of screen time, and he doesn't need any solo screen time. He can be there and moving the characters along, moving the story along, getting them to Camelin. And since you're breaking the group up into multiple groups, they can bounce back and forth between the scenes to show the character development.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well,
Todd. Yeah, Todd. Any disagreement there with keeping this entire scene intact here? And
I kind of feel like it needs to be there just because if we're going to show Matt and Rand traveling all the way to Camelin, Thom Thom is teaching them how to be, juggle and play the flute, and that's kind of how they earn their way up the road. And so, I mean, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be Thom teaching them that, but that's something that they kind of use as they go. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
I mean, I'm not so set on Bayle, other than he does show up later. He kind of circles back around. So if you want to put him in from that kind of a perspective, I can definitely see it.
Yeah, Funny thing is that the juggling and music playing, that's kind of an eye of the worldism, because it kind of vanishes after the first book. But Bayle Domon sticks around till the end.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that is part of their journey at this stage, but it doesn't necessarily play any other key role there. So, yeah, I definitely like the trip down the do you pronounce it Arnell? I'm not sure if I pronounced that one right, but I like this journey down.
I don't pronounce anything right. So.
Right. I do like this journey. I like it split up. I guess I am in favor. I don't know what they're saying on YouTube in the comments, but I guess I'm in favor of keeping him. Look, it's going to be really tough to make these cut calls, and if they've just cut him out of the series entirely, if they've worked it out for the first couple seasons, he definitely is someone that can be woven in later again. But this does make a lot of sense. I think, Mary, you're right. It doesn't take too much to put him into this, and they can build maybe his character more later as it comes. So we have them on the boat. There's some fun stuff that happens when they get on the boat. I can't wait to see that. Hopefully we get the spray and we get the trip. I'd love to see them actually articulate these ideas from the book visually. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now the next chapter is, I believe, our first point of view from Nynaeve, and this is that whole kind of, she finds Moraine and Lan, and then Moraine can detect her and says, come out of the hiding spot, and they have it's a pretty short chapter, but I'm going to make my first go at this, which is I like this chapter a lot for these reasons. At first I was like, this will be an easy one, let's just get rid of it, or do we really need this whole Nynaeve kind of sneaks up on them? And I'm not saying we actually need that portion of this moment, but Moraine and Lan talk about what's happened. And there's some world building here that I really like, which they talk about how many Trollocs are there. They bring up that in the area, I think there were about 1,000. And they're talking about this need to find the boys and how important he is to the Dark One. And so if they haven't already built that up, this is a moment to take stock of, wait, the Trollocs don't care about these three people, right? Right. They're not the ones that are the focus. And so you start getting this idea of what this world is and what the Dark One's after. And it does not include these three people, which I love that that this is kind of woven into this moment, because from a reader standpoint, and I think from a viewer standpoint, this is going to be an awakening to them, right? Because everyone's been chased up to this point, but now here's these three people, and no one cares about them any longer, right? At least the Dark One doesn't.
Right, and like you're saying, that part where Nynaeve is talking about the Trolloc smeller and then just kind of wander off,
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that, yeah.
To me, it's a nice world building piece. Do Mary or Ted, do either of you think this is just an unnecessary kind of stop, and maybe we should just jump right to Perrin and Egwene at this point?
I don't.
Not at all.
I don't. It helps establish the relationship between Nynaeve and Lan, between Nynaeve and Moraine. It does the world building, and that whole scene can probably take 2 or 3 minutes if it's done right. It depends. It shows, these are the three adults. They're the ones that are trying to get the boys and Egwene as well, and they're floundering as well, and it adds to the whole kind of the emotional arc that I would hope that they're trying to maintain, that this is crazy, this is scary, it's dangerous, the forces of the Dark One are after them, and these simple folk, and I think that we need that.
Okay.
And also, this is where we actually find out that Moraine gave coins that were tagged to the Emond's Field, as we didn't technically know that before, that they were tracers.
Right, and it shows her level, her level of prep, and also her abilities. And they may not go into the details of how she did it, but it helps add to the mystique of Moraine and the Aes Sedai and what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those I'd be hard pressed to kind of pull it out of the storyline. Obviously, if they don't end up making the decision to keep, all the groups split up like this, then this will change. But I really like this scene a lot. I kind of came into this thinking we're going to cut this thing out because we need to get here. We need to move the story along. But I really like this from a character development side for all three of these. I think Lan actually speaks a lot here. In comparison, right? They're having conversation. They're very concerned. You might get this idea that Lan's like this really stoic, say nothing, whatever. He just kind of does whatever Moraine says. But there's something about, when I remember reading this, there's something about his, kind of emotional connection to what's going on here that comes through. So, by the way, before we jump to the next chapter, chapter 22, we actually have another caller calling in from Texas. It's Rachel. Let's bring her in, see what she has to say about the discussion we've had so far. Hey, Rachel from Texas, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing tonight?
Doing all right. How are y'all?
Good. We're doing good. Hey, well, thank you. So what have you heard so far that you either agree with or don't disagree with, and what in between Shadar Logoth and the Stedding are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm echoing what Mary was saying. I really hope that they will keep the scene with Nynaeve and, her, sneaking in there while Moraine and Lan are talking. And I love that scene because, again, it's the first seeds of their relationship. Yeah. And these ties are being established. And I think it's crucial to their character development. And again, I'm just a huge Lan and Nynaeve shipper. So I'm really excited to seeing those things played out on screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, there are a lot of scenes that I do question from a cut perspective. But like you said, from a, just characterization. I like even the Nynaeve Lan, the beginning of that relationship. If that's going to happen, this is definitely a good spot to bring this in. And I think we do get a little bit more of Nynaeve outside of her caretaking responsibilities that she feels. Right? She no longer, of course, she's concerned about them, but she's not there, kind of tending to them, and she's worrying about Egwene, but she's not kind of trying to control her or push her in a certain direction. So I think there's something really nice to kind of pull her out of that in this moment. Is there something else between Shadar Logoth and the Stedding scene that you're looking forward to that you think we have to keep?
Well, I mean, again, I really hope they, keep the boat trip to Whitebridge. Yeah. I really think they need to keep that for all the reasons you guys were saying. With what happened, spoiler alert, with, Thom and the Myrddraal. And I mean, that's crucial because that's, that really, I mean, the boys are just so shocked by what happens to him. And, it's an emotional moment. So I really hope that they keep all that and not just speed it up. Oh, we're in Camelin, so.
Yeah, this is going to be tough, right? There's from an adaptation standpoint, you kind of wonder how much time do we have to get there, and right, that has to be in our mind, right? We can't say yes to every scene. We want to be able to.
Oh, why not?
We want to say yes to every scene,
well,
but
yes, but I mean, yes, we can't have everything. So I realize some stuff will have to be cut, but I really hope with a lot of these, I mean, if they're planning on adapting only this book, for season 1, I really hope they'll try to keep in as much as possible.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for, again, jumping in and calling us and sharing your opinion. We really appreciate it. That's one of the reasons why we do the show, just to kind of meet up and chat with random Wheel of Time fans.
No, I'm excited. Yeah. No, I'm excited I got to call in. I always have to catch the replay, so this is awesome. You guys have a good night.
Hey, you too. Hope you call back.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, yeah, that's a lot of people love these scenes. And rightfully so, right? These are some great scenes. When we're going to get back to them on the boat here in a bit, and I want to revisit this question about Thom. But let's jump into chapter 22, which is called The Path Chosen. It's Perrin awakes and he finds Egwene. And this is a this is a relatively short chapter. There's a lot of kind of little Edmondsfield kind of politics that goes on between them, like who's going to make choice. And, Egwene's already kind of gotten herself set up and she helps Perrin. There's a lot of building of these two characters, which I like a lot, which is, and I hope that they dig in here. I hope we come to love Perrin and Egwene, or as far as from a characterization, that they spend time here and really make us believe these characters are, that they're real and they're genuine. They've known each other for a very long time, that they have inside jokes and they have, kind of annoyances. Like, I really hope they dig in here, because here they are alone, just the two of them, right? They don't have a Thom, they don't have a Lan or Moraine. They're by themselves. And in this moment, they decide, we're going to try to skip this whole Whitebridge thing and go straight to Camelin, which is epically fun because they don't even know where they're at, right? They have a general idea. And so, right, these country folk are like, yeah. So there's this city somewhere we've never, ever been to, seen it on a map one time. And there's this other city. And we don't really know the direction other than we have this river right here. So let's go. We're totally going to skip the, which I love. So that's my take. I like this scene. And obviously we need to have kind of a beginning scene here to meet them. Anyone on the panel think that we can get rid of the scene, or are there other things about the scene that you really like and enjoy and think we need?
I like this scene. I really do. I think it starts bringing Perrin kind of into his leadership role that he hates having later on, So I feel like she started pushing him into it.
Oh, it's interesting. Do you think they're going to build that relationship between Egwene kind of pushing on Perrin to do things that he doesn't like to do? Maybe this is a role that she's always played since they've been young, from this perspective of that she's kind of used to not manipulating, just encouraging him in a specific kind of way because she knows that maybe from a perspective of making certain decisions that he's a little bit slower to come to the conclusion that maybe she wants.
Right.
Yeah,
I think Egwene has a lot of those leadership skills that many see as bullying or manipulative that obviously she's going to need later in the series. And I think it's interesting. I never really thought about it as many times as I've read this book, as read the books. But you've got Mat and Rand together. You've got one that's really gung ho and wants adventure and treasure and excitement and everything, and one that doesn't. And you've got the same kind of dichotomy with Perrin and Egwene. You've got somebody who's really excited to see the world and be a part of the world and learn, and one that just really wants to go home. And and there's that struggle as well. I just want to say, I really, really hope they skip the romantic subplot between Egwene and Perrin. It does not need to be there.
Yeah, I'm not.
Well, it's funny though, because when they first meet Elyas, he comments on how bossy Egwene is, and then obviously that kind of is a callback later when we meet Fael and see how bossy she is, and how Elyas later was like, "Oh yeah, all Saldaeans are like that."
Well, what's funny is to me that Elyas is really bossy. It's like he complains about Egwene, and I think that's kind of a nod to her, which is I think he likes the fact that she takes initiative and she moves in ways that I think he tries to encourage Perrin to do the same. I don't believe I guess as I'm reading through right here, maybe it'll remind me later. I don't find this Egwene bossy at this point.
Really?
Look, no, I don't find her bossy at this point. Again, what we know about her so far, no, she's certainly assertive as far as what she believes is the right way to go about things, and Perrin is certainly very conservative about what that looks like. And I think any discussion between those two point of views turns into this feeling like the one is, well, why are you being so bossy, and the other one is, why aren't we doing anything? And we need to move and act at this point. So yeah, that's not. I don't take her at this point as bossy. So, but anyways, that was a short chapter. Let's jump into it, because this is like you said, this is where we meet Elyas in chapter 23. They travel about 2 days. Perrin has some dreams of Bayle Domon, and then they meet Elyas, and the wolves arrive, and Elyas brings up a couple things. He explains this whole, right, does some exposition here, right? He explains this wolf brother thing, and he actually brings up the Black Aja, which, I had forgotten that it came in this early in the, is that, it's really interesting as each one of these characters, as we'll see it with Bayle Domon and Elyas, they definitely serve kind of this exposition piece, like throwing out these little tidbits that we don't really necessarily know about until much later. But yeah, he mentions the Black Aja, and Perrin does at the very end of this recognize that the wolves are leaving and that Elyas might not be lying to them. This one is really hard for me. As I parse this down, maybe we don't need this they're traveling for 2 whole days feel, like that can be really quick. But do we need the dreams? I've seen this conversation happen in some of the comments on YouTube. I've seen this happen, on other social media. A lot of people are saying, and some of you have made the same comment, we don't really need too much of these dreams, but they keep happening. So, Mary, do we need Bayle Domon teasing Perrin here and kind of coming at him and saying, you're gonna be mine, and being in his dreams? And
I don't know if we need it like specifically here, but I think we do need it at some level for all 3 boys, and however they choose to weave that in is fair game, as long as it's still continuing to show we don't know which one they want. It could be one of them, it could be all of them, and or it could be both, and actually it was both, but hey, spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. Anyone else against keeping kind of these dreams with Bayle Domon going? Is it too much of this crazy guy showing up in their dreams? Is it too much at this point, or is there something key here?
I think it ties in because of Perrin's connection to the wolf dream, and this is the first time we get to establish that.
So yeah, the wolves coming into the story make the dreams definitely a lot more relevant to the actual plots themselves, because eventually what happens, right, is he starts seeing them in his dreams, right? So we're going to get to that point, which is then there's a key world building issue here, which I think is important. This whole scene feels like we need it. Todd, is there anything here that you think is unnecessary? Is anyone going to make the case for Elyas not showing up in the story at this point?
No, not me.
Not I.
Yeah, I think this is one of the dreams that does bring the wolves in, because the wolves, if I remember correctly, they feel he wakes up from a dream and they all kind of felt the dream with him.
That one's a little bit. I don't remember. Yeah, that was a little bit later on. Yeah, that was a little bit later.
So, yep. Okay. So I'm getting my dreams confused. I don't have those exactly written down here.
No problem.
But yeah, I want Elyas in the book. I mean, in the show. I think Perrin needs him to explain things.
Yeah, I can't imagine them doing the show without Wolf Brothers. Right.
He's cool too, though. He's just a cool guy, and he's seen a lot. And when they tell him the lie about where they're from, and he totally busts them out, because he knows he's been all over. He knows the world a lot better than they do.
Yeah. See, like I said, these last 4 chapters, it's tough to imagine cutting much from them. Now, certainly they can do some quick. They don't have to spend a lot of time, with the traveling aspect of it. But the sit-down meet portion of this, with the wolves coming in and them kind of understanding this is another thing, right? And this eventually builds this whole idea of the Aes Sedai, how they look at this talent, this gift, and what they think about it, and Perrin's relationship with Aes Sedai and Egwene. So, yeah,
and this also, it starts Perrin's relationship with Hopper too.
Yeah, this is the beginning of that piece. So, yeah, chapter 23, man, just the characters and the world building going on here are, it's just so important. So, yeah, this one's tough. If they somehow dropped him, it kind of makes you wonder how they would, manage to keep this storyline interesting. So
it would be easier to drop the Tankers than it would to drop Elyas.
Ooh, yeah, we're coming up on that. That's going to be a good question. Yeah, I think that one's good. That one might be our first throwdown tonight, as far as if we keep them or not. I went one way and then the other today when I was thinking about this. So we'll see how that pieces in to what happens. What could they cut here? So the next chapter is actually Rand and Matt on the spray. And it kind of starts breaking us into what's going on. It's not that big of a chapter, if I remember correctly, but this is a dream that he has of Ishmael and the maze, and he talks about kind of running away from it. Anybody awakes with blood on his fingertip, so we have to ask ourselves, is that important for our viewers to know that dreams, that things can happen in dreams that affect you in real life in this world?
Depends on if they're keeping the world of dreams or not.
What? I can't believe you just said that, Mary.
It's a valid question.
It's totally a valid question. How can they not? I just don't. I wouldn't even.
You might as well get rid of Varen.
Not that bad.
Yeah,
you don't need Lanfear anymore.
You guys are just mean. You've been discussing the Wheel of Time with me way too long. You're like, I'm sure you guys are talking after the show. Like, we should just say we don't want anything that Matt really likes into the show. Yes, Teleron Riyadh. It definitely makes us ask this question of how much of that. I feel like it has to come in later, but how much of it do we need to know right now? Those things can be taught. Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
We could get rid of the blood thing because we already kind of know if we keep the scene in Bayle where Bayle Domon breaks all the backs of the rats, we know that it has an effect in the real world.
True. Yeah, so that we could here, and then we have this one piece that shows up here, and I wonder how they're going to connect it, but it really hit me as I was going through it, which is they make a big deal about the wind slowing down the traveling. And Rand makes a big deal about the fact that he left Egwene behind. He can't find her. And in this chapter, he talks about, watching for Egwene, right? And it makes you feel this idea of the dragon is one with the land, right? This idea of, that Rand is slowing them down because he's worried about his friends. So I love that portion of it. I kind of wonder, though, if they're going to try to include that in, or if that's just something they're going to just let the visuals, they don't have to say anything, but just let us experience it the same way that we experience it as we're reading, which is like there's this weird thing happening. People can't explain it, but sometimes maybe it's related to Rand's mood that he's in and what Rand is doing. But this is what you brought up, Mary, the Tower of Genji and the 100-foot tall statues. And Matt mentions, that there must be treasure inside. And Bayle mentions literally the Chodan Call, Sea Folk, the Search for the Cormor, Tanchico, and the Panarch's Palace. I mean, I literally, you just read this whole section, you're like, okay, I get it. You're just, you're letting us know stuff's gonna happen eventually. And we have this, I think we have this moment with Rand having this euphoria up on the mast at the very end of this chapter. And that's the first time he sees Matt with the dagger. So we have some pieces here. I do feel like there's a lot going on in this chapter, but Mary, do you feel like this is a kind of a piece that we don't need to come back to as far as Bayle kind of just telling him 7,000 things about the world and Rand having this dream and they're just going slowly down the,
I don't know if the dream needs to stay. I like the world building of just mentioning all these places, especially since most of them do come back at a later point. So it's in your face foreshadowing, which is useful and needed. We need this. I like the scene where Rand's up on the mast and has his euphoria because it ties back to, and if we keep the scene where Moiraine is explaining to Nynaeve how Wilders work. Well, here we see a Wilder going through the first bits of his sickness. And it takes the third or fourth reread before you realize, hey, these two things are connected.
Right.
But,
right.
It could be a little bit more blatantly done, especially depending on how they choose to animate using the one power.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This is a key moment for Rand, and so I am hopeful that they're able to kind of work this idea in, because you want to see these moments, because you want to go back, just like we experience in the books. You want to kind of go back when you're viewing it, and you go back and watch it. That's what I hope that they carry through, right? This idea that if I go back and watch this show, I'm going to learn so much more the second time I watch it and the third time I watch it. I hope that same feel that carries through from a reading perspective is actually something that they're writing for, and there's this moment that Rand actually sees Matt with the dagger, which is an important piece. It doesn't necessarily have to happen in this order that we've gotten.
No, it doesn't.
They could jump on the boat and Matt could trip and the dagger falls out and whatever. There's ways to kind of show that piece that doesn't have to be right now.
Right.
But I do like this Rand on top of the mast. By the way, let's jump before Todd and Ted, before you throw any comments here. We have Nick. Nick has come and talk. He's called in a bunch for us. We're going to bring him into the call here, see what he has to say. 1 second. Hey, Nick. Nick, welcome to the show, man. Welcome back. And how are you doing tonight? And what comments do you have about what we've been chatting about?
Thanks for having me on again. I really enjoy calling in. But I think that the thing with the dreams, I actually got a couple things to talk about. The thing with the dreams is it's too much of an info dump. And I really dislike when TV shows do blatant exposit so I hate the info dumps, because especially when it's just all thrown at you at once. I always feel like, can't they be showing us this in some way? So we need the information that they give us, but and which is why I agree that Rand's sickness, his early reaction to channeling, should be kept.
Yeah.
Because people need to be able to go back and say, I see when they were talking about why men need to be gentled, why it's better for them health-wise to be gentle, because a lot of them die if they're not, because there's nobody to teach them. At least early on.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting point, Nick, that you bring up, which is, it would be interesting to show us that. I would, hopefully we do get to see that somehow, and maybe it isn't in the books necessarily here at this point, but that would be an interesting thing to be shown that and feel some kind of danger for Rand at this. Maybe not. I don't know at this juncture.
Yeah,
but,
I hope they ramp it up. I really hope they ramp it. I hope they ramp it up so that I want to feel as the audience like he's on the verge of he's hovering between life and death for a little while, because otherwise I get this feeling that if they just with the gentling when it comes up, I feel like they have to provide a balance. Like there's a positive reason behind the gentling. Like they're saving lives. I mean, the Red Odds, they're saving lives. They're not just saving lives by preventing future breakings. They're saving the lives of the male channelers.
Yeah.
By health wise.
Yeah, this is a good point.
So I hope.
Yeah, for sure.
And
you had
I hope that they play that.
Yeah, you said you had to second a comment. What else was kind of that we've talked about so far was kind of hitting you?
The dreams, I hope they cut them out completely, or give us a montage. I really, really do not want a dream info dump like you was talking about, like they're wandering around the world in a dream. I was just cringing when you were saying that.
Okay, you guys are killing me with the Tel'aran'rhiod stuff. I love that. I love every single scene that's there. But I know that I'm not necessarily in the majority, at least from the discussions I've had there. It seems like something, and I agree with this, which is they can cut some of the dream stuff early on. We don't need too much of it. I still think it has a lot of key integrations into the later story. I think we need it, and we're gonna get there in more depth. But I agree, it doesn't have to be. We don't just see Matt and Perrin and Rand running around Tel'aran'rhiod, and being chased over and over again. I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, maybe we do one dream sequence, and that's when if we play up Rand being sick even more, maybe it focuses on him like having a fever and like thrashing around and stuff, and Maureen's like hold him down and she's trying to heal him, lend him strength, stuff like that, and then we get a look inside Rand's head and that's when we see the dream.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting question of how we do that. Yeah.
Well, that's how I would do it. But I would also leave the impression that maybe leave it so that the audience doesn't know, hey, is this just a dream? Was this a nightmare? And then later on, people will be able to go back and go, oh, wait a minute. That wasn't a dream. That was actually happening.
Okay. Yeah,
so
I like that.
It could be like an aha moment.
I like that a lot. Hey, Nick.
That's the...
Yeah, you know, for example, we love we love it when you call in, and I agree with both of those ideas. Of it would be really interesting to kind of have people question the reality of this dream. Is it something we're actually seeing? Is it something that's happening to them or not? And then the blood drip kind of piece, this idea of you can be hurt in the dream, and we don't have to see it too often. I like that idea a lot. So. Hey, we have another caller waiting. Is there one last comment you want to make before we let you go?
Yeah.
Okay,
my last comment is cut the tinkerers completely. Get rid of them.
Hey,
we don't need them.
You're jumping ahead, but I hear you. Okay, so that's we're gonna get there really shortly, and that's good to know because I think a lot of people are going to feel that idea. So hey, again, Nick, I'm sure we'll hopefully talk to you next week. Really appreciate you always calling in and sharing your opinion, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Yep, talk to you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Yep.
See ya.
Before we bring our next caller in, it's actually just recently called us. He must have another comment to make. Anything that Nick said that you guys liked, disagreed with there, as far as his suggestions?
Well, regarding the dreams, I mean, they can do a lot with that. They can even bring in elements from dreams later in the book because it's all kind of giving background to Tel'aran'rhiod. Maybe even give a cameo appearance for Brigida and Geidel, just where you see them kind of lurking around, for example.
Interesting. Maybe advance us in the story of Tel'aran'rhiod versus necessarily just kind of showing little pieces. I hadn't even thought about that. Let's throw Lancer back into the call. I think that's who's calling us, and see what he has to say. Here, 1 second. Is this Lancer from California? You're welcome back on the show.
Hey guys, this is actually a hot take for you, Mary. If you want to take something out, let's take out the Children of the Light out of the entire first season, and this is why. You already have a major antagonist in the Dark One, so you keep it fixed on him in the Shadow Spawn. You don't need to put in a secondary baddie until maybe book 2, because if theoretically book 1 is half of or all of book 1 and half of book 2, then you can bring in the Children of the Light in the second book as a secondary big bad, and then Perrin can kill Bernhold or whoever's dad, I can't remember who it is, father during the Battle of Thom instead of having him kill him in the Stedding. And then that way, so you still have the death thing going on, and you can link it that way. So you don't have to have so many, antagonists going on in the first book. And then for the dreams, dude, you got to keep the dreams. I'm with you, homie. You got to keep the dreams. But this is how you do it, though. Have them have a dream sequence, a big dream sequence going on, and then have all three of them wake up at the same time going, what? And then just have a look on Egwene's face because she can maybe sense it, and that will give you a little tie-in to what's going on. Yeah, and he's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, interesting.
Okay.
That's my hot take.
Go for it, Mary.
I got it. All right. So first of all, Perrin did not kill Geofram Bornhold. He died at the Battle of Thom. He killed somebody else in a white cloak. I know they all look the same, but it was a different thing. Second, I do admit I am all for having multiple antagonists because I love a big, messy world. And I think each of the antagonists adds to the overall layers of how awesome the world is. I can see delaying the white cloaks showing up to later, but they definitely need to be there because you need them for the interaction with Perrin. You need them for Aemon Valda and what he does to the queen. And you, I don't know. I think you can get rid of Galad, but I don't know. I'm on the fence there. I'm jumping ahead. And second, I also think we need to keep the World of Dreams. I just want Matt to argue for it. He needs to work for it.
Yeah. They're gonna make me work to keep Tel'aran'rhiod. I'm gonna have to make some really good cases. Hey, thanks for calling us.
Help him out.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for calling us back.
Thanks,
again,
Lancer.
please do call again
No
next
problem,
week.
guys.
Hey, see ya.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I
Yeah,
will. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Hank.
So yeah, that's that is a question. The White Cloaks and how big of a piece they'll play in this initial portion. They do seem kind of ripe for some cutting of them, but I can't see them being cut completely at all.
I guess the reason I like the White Cloaks so much is because they kind of, to me, drew a comparison to Eredal. And, because they're almost to that point of in their religious fervor,
Well, that's certainly one place where Mordath goes, right? So
right.
That makes sense that he sees opportunity there. Absolutely. Yep. Okay, chapter 25, The Traveling People. I told myself I would try to say this properly, so I'm going to say this the Tuatha'an. There we go. I made it the first time. All right.
You got it.
This is Perrin, Egwene, and Elyas. This is the part you're talking about, Todd, part of it. He notices he doesn't dream of Baalzamon anymore, and he notices the wolves in his dream. And then they meet the Tuatha'an. And then we're introduced in the same kind of way to the Way of the Leaf. We're introduced to this idea of a song, and then we're told all about the Maidens of the Spear and the story of a maiden surviving and talking about Sightburner, meaning to blind the eye of the world and slay the great serpent. And then we also hear about He Who Comes with the Dawn. I mean, literally, I forgot, I think, how much of the entirety of the books are mentioned in the first 25 chapters. This piece is a very interesting piece because we get to know this idea of the Way of the Leaf and the Tinkers. Do we need this?
No, I'm all for cutting this out. I think I just don't think we need it. I mean, first of all, I can't say their name. They're the Tinkers. And second, I don't see the point in keeping them around because they don't really add anything right now. Which, I mean, I guess you could say a lot of stuff I want hasn't added anything, but I just don't see where we need them around because they're just a plot point, basically, at this time.
It's a way to. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to ask this: are you advocating, Todd, to get rid of them completely out of the story, or just bring them in later?
I haven't got there yet.
Okay.
For right now, gone. I'm going to say right now.
Okay. Go ahead, Mary.
I was going to say, I like the Tinkers. They'd be easy to portray on the TV, but in terms of the story and the plot points that show up with the Tinkers that can be folded in elsewhere, the spoiler alert, sorry, if you get rid of it, and I will, I hate it, but you got to cut something. If you have to cut something, I would be fine with cutting the Tinkers. That would mean that you lose the connection between the Tinkers and the Aiel, which is just, kind of a layer of complexity, but you don't really lose too terribly much there. You would lose Aram, which, bye Felicia. You would lose the song and the connectivity between the song and the Nim and the Aiel. But those aren't really driving any important plot points or even sort of important plot points. It's great for the book. I don't think it would work for TV.
Interesting.
Are
you, before you jump in, Ted, is this a complete deletion of the Tinker storyline itself, or are you also on the fence as far as bringing them back in later, Mary?
I will put myself out there. I will say get rid of the Tinkers altogether.
Okay. I get rid of it. Ted, where are you at on this?
Well, let me change your mind, Mary. I think the Tinkers have a big role psychologically in Perrin's dual persona of being either a warrior or a builder. The Tinkers are a large part of that. Does he go with the hammer or the axe? That's a theme that we see constantly starting right now. I mean, and when he has the argument with Aram about, oh, if Trollocs come, should you fight or run away? This is where that begins.
But his angst between the hammer and the and the axe, I don't really necessarily think that I think you can create that tension in the dream world, maybe as he's working as a blacksmith and the wolves want him to leave. I think there's ways to get there. I don't think the Tinkers, at least you haven't convinced me yet that we have to have him for that reason. I feel like we can get that that tension without the Tinkers. But I think there is some notion here, Ted, I will agree with, which is there's a world building piece here that, yes, there's lots of different cultures. We're going to meet a lot of them. This is one part of the world that's just totally different than everything else. So I do like them for that. So I guess I'm on the fence. I'm not for getting rid of the Tinkers altogether at this point. But I will agree with Todd and Mary that they can be dropped in this moment. So that is our first cut. Unfortunately, Ted, you haven't convinced us. Majority is going to rule on this one. We've cut the Tinkers from this interaction, this meeting at the moment. And I know how
it's
it
not
feels.
like they're going to complain. They're Tinkers.
Oh,
right.
I'm not in love with the Tinkers, but they do have their...
Oh, no. Agreed. I actually like the Tinkers. I like the total pacifism as a counterpoint to the absolute bloodshed of the rest of the series. And they'll be missed, but I think it could work without them.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, if the Tinkers took over the world, it might turn out to be like the nightmare vision Rand sees at the very end of what the world is like. So you can't just have an all Tinker world. You need strife and war, as we find out.
Well, that's our first major cut in a while. How does that feel, guys? we just cut a whole
tough.
People out. Yeah,
That's a tough. It's tough.
Yeah,
but if we keep the Tinkers out, then who's Fane gonna mess around with? And he was the first cut we brought back.
Well, you have to remember, in this case, the Dark One, or me, has no real desire to retcon these individuals. So you don't have to worry that they're going to come back in the later adaptations. Now, but I can see us bringing them back as far as I'm not totally sold that they're gone from the story. So, but at this juncture, I think it's definitely something we can drop. Now, before we jump into Whitebridge, which is a fun little decision point here. Well, actually, yeah, let's jump into that. I think we had a caller. It might have dropped off, so we'll see if he calls back in. So Rand, Matt, and Thom arrive in Whitebridge. This is another piece of exposition, but this one makes more sense to me. They go to the Wayfarer's Rest, I believe it's called. They meet Bartim, and he tells them that Logain was captured. He mentions Caemlyn and Queen Morghese. He talks about the hunt for the horn and the Horn of Alir, which has to be found before the final battle with the Dark One. I mean, it's just so funny. Like, there's all these little fun kind of like, oh, okay, thank you very much for all that information. That's really interesting stuff. Now, and then we have the sneaking into the alleyway and the Myrddraal and the Thom's attack here and the boys running out of Whitebridge. So, do we need this entire sequence of them stopping at this inn? I don't know if we taking a moment and then running into the Fade.
I don't know that we need the whole sequence, but okay. I love the scene of Thom fighting the Myrddraal. I love that scene.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one I feel like, well, so this is what it's gonna come down to, right? Is Thom with us at this point in the adaptation? So we believe, in our adaptation, Thom is still with us, I believe. So that would happen. Obviously, I think a case could be made for Thom not even being here in this moment, and that Rand and Matt just, have an escape scene here or, whatever it is. But I do love this. If Thom's here, why not? Like, this is a great kind of we need Matt and Rand to get alone. So it kind of serves a little of a plot device here a bit to kind of split these guys up. But it's a fun piece. Mary, where are you at with this Whitebridge moment? They stop and they have this inn and they have the Myrddraal and they kind of run away.
I think it could be streamlined. I'd like to see the Whitebridge and how they show this relic of the past and how it's woven into, the town of the present. But I think they could probably get away with the three of them wandering through town, maybe talking or some other plot point there, and they're crossing the bridge and the Myrddraal is there, and we have the scene that cements Thom as a badass.
Yeah, I don't feel like we need to necessarily. I think we can kind of quickly get through this. It's fun to stop in the inn and check in, right? They want to know, have they seen anybody else? They find out that, they find out about Pat and Fane and the Myrddraal have been through here. I don't think that's totally necessary. I think we can learn that information if we want to other ways. I do think you're right. I do like this. You brought this really important piece up. They are kind of letting us know the Age of Legends comes up, right? There's this, like you said, this relic that's a part of it. So it does this merging of this old kind of technologically savvy, world back into this kind of almost what we would consider maybe more medieval. And so I do like that piece. I like that piece a lot. Them going into the town and then running into this, it could be a really quick kind of deft thing. Like they've been on this boat, awesome, and all of a sudden conflict, and now they're split up from Thom, and we don't know if Tom's dead.
It would be a good place to end an episode.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
A great cliffhanger.
You definitely could right here. You could end it here, although I have a hard time believing we'll only get to this point. But it's possible. It's possible how much building they want to do on the ship, how much building they want to do with Perrin and Egwene and Elyas, and to what if this is like an ending moment for that. But this definitely could be the end. We don't know anything more about Rand and Matt and Thom in this moment. And so maybe not the end of the episode, but the end of their storyline. So you're kind of left with the tension of what's happening next. So before we jump into then Shelter from the Storm, chapter 27, let's bring in Rob. Looks like he gave us a call back. Let's bring him into the show. Hey, Rob from Florida. Welcome to the Dusty Wheel. Thanks for calling in.
Yes.
Hey,
Hi. So, I wanted to...
Yeah, go for it. What comment do you have to make about what we've said already? And go for it. Just tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, so I have a little point. I think I want to talk about the Tuathan. I think cutting them out completely is a really bad mistake because essentially they are the core. They are who the Aiel were. And if you cut them out, I mean, you're cutting out a huge section of the Aiel's history and who they became and, why they became what they were. This tool that was forged in the waste, and you can't do that without the Tuathan, I think, because that's the link from the Age of Legends to Ruidian and everything there's just way too much there to cut the Tinkers out.
Okay, yeah, you're bringing up a good point, which is why my guess is from our adaptation standpoint, as we dig deeper into the books, they're definitely going to come back. But I will point this out: you could though still tell the story of the Tuathan, but not necessarily. In other words, the Tinkers exist, but do they have to show up? Other than kind of you see them someplace or there's made mention of them until later. In other words, we connect these two populaces together, and we're like, oh, this is these people. They believe in this thing, but the question becomes, do we really need to sit down with them and get to know them immediately in book one? How do you feel about this notion of dropping them out of season one of the television series, but they come in later? Is that, or do you think we need to meet them in this kind of season one?
Oh, I love the strife there between them and Elyas and what you were talking about earlier with the the axe and the hammer and all of that. That all comes in play later on. But I think you could get through the Tuathan in 15, 20 minutes of footage in the first few episodes there. That whole they're running through the woods, they're lost, Elyas shows up, and then they run into the Tuathan, and just a quick introduction will help later on connect those dots much better, because repetition is what makes a story.
Okay, yeah, so I would agree with that. With that they certainly could bring them. they could have them if they're going to cut something, they could cut the length of material there, and because the tension with Elyas and them is interesting, certainly, and what role they play in later, I think is an interesting role. So I absolutely understand that, and at the very least, I definitely still believe that they play a role clearly in the story itself, and they need to be there. And so maybe we'll get a little piece of them, or maybe we won't. But I think they are one of the viable candidates for people we meet later, if that makes sense. If they just don't have the time from a writing.
It does. Thank you.
Hey, by the way, thanks again for calling in, Rob, and please call us again next time.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Hey, bye-bye. So, yeah, that one's going to be a tough cut for a lot of people, I think, and rightfully so. I don't believe we can get rid of them completely, but I certainly think we can cut that portion down. If not, excise it from our adaptation right now and bring them in later. So we're kind of running in with our last kind of 10 minutes of the show here, 10, 15 minutes. We're at chapter 27, Shelter from the Storm. This is more of the Tinker kind of moment. We've just cut them from our adaptation. So we're saying we don't need this part where Elyas tells Perrin be patient, and that there's dancing scenes and Perrin and Egwene are arguing over waiting, and Perrin, Bayle Domon kills a wolf in the dream, and then Elyas wakes them up and leaving. We're saying let's cut that, which I think is absolutely a viable kind of decision to make here, which is, they can be Elyas can be traveling along with them, and there can be a dream, right? They're going somewhere, and then there's a dream, and we just go immediately to this Perrin dream, and then all of a sudden Elyas is like, okay, we got to go. I know where I'm taking you, and let's get going. So I don't think there's much to say here. Some of you cut out the Tinkers, and so we can kind of jump immediately to footprints in the air. This is the first scene we get Nynaeve, Lan, and Moraine back, and they're arriving in Whitebridge. They have this whole kind of moment that Moraine tells Nynaeve, "We want to go to Tar Valon." They see the burned down buildings in Whitebridge. They visit the same inn, and Moraine explains the plan to go after Perrin, and they leave. Do we need this moment of Nynaeve, Lan, and Moraine in Whitebridge?
Well, it is a callback to Rand and Matt and Thom, but other than that, it doesn't feel like it does that much.
Yeah, what would
other
you
than
do
real. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. How would you adapt this, Todd? Would you have them show up in Whitebridge? Would you just give this kind of notion, something's happened and we need to go this way while they're traveling? Is there any real need for them to be in Whitebridge at this point?
No, other than to show basically the destruction of what happened when Thom fought the Myrddraal, and to get a little bit of, I think I'm trying to remember exactly what they learned while they were there. It wasn't very much. I just feel like it can kind of be skipped over.
Yeah, Mary, you feeling the same thing here? Do we have to have... I do like them coming back to these three, and I feel like they could do it a different way here. Make them actually... I mean, they have to get over the river at this point, I believe, to go after Perrin. And so I guess it maybe makes kind of a logistical sense. Maybe they could have figured out some way to get across other than this. It makes a logistical sense.
Yeah, they're trying to get a hold of everybody, so you have to show them trying to get a hold of everybody, one way or the other.
So would you have them immediately go after Perrin though, without kind of having to have this like, oh shoot, there's been a fire and the two boys have kind of gone somewhere, we don't know exactly where, so we're going to go after this one? Or do you just want to have them go after Perrin because she knows where, at least where one of them is at?
If they just breeze through Whitebridge, there's no fire, there's no nothing for them to come in and look at. It depends on how they, do the prior. They've got, the point is that they're trying to get all of them together. It's, do they follow the one set or do they follow the other? And they started following one, but that trail went cold. Now they're making the decision to follow the other. And while they're doing that, Nynaeve is getting very angry, and Lan is getting very tired, and it's great. And,
yeah.
And then they move on.
Yeah, so I think that's true. I think this can be quick. That's the one problem with this episode. Is it okay that we're going? We might only get Nynaeve and Lan and Moraine in kind of quick spurts. Do we want to hear more about Moraine's plans, Or is this enough? Is this kind of like, we really want to dig into Perrin and Egwene and Rand and Matt's stories, and Nynaeve and Lan and Moraine can kind of take a back seat for this episode? Is that a general feeling? Okay.
I'm not sure how that is going to justify with what we've heard in rumors that this is going to be a Moraine-centric story arc. I don't know how to reconcile that.
Now you could have her stop in Whitebridge, and she has one of her she gets a note. You could have her begin to do some where you start to get a feel like, oh, she has people all over the world that are reporting to her, in some form or fashion. She's aware of other details. You could start building in this other part of her mystique here, instead of just like, oh, look, burn down buildings, we're going north. That doesn't really add much to the story. So they could add some pieces there. Ted, what were you going to say?
Keep it mysterious.
Yeah, keep it mysterious. That's true.
So if you have Moraine and Lan and Nynaeve not go to rescue Perrin and Egwene, but you still have the White Cloaks, they could change that up a bit and maybe have Elyas and the wolves rescue Perrin and show more of the wolves in the world.
That's an interesting idea. You're suggesting kind of adapting it to the point of, we're not going to have the Tinkers. So you're almost suggesting like Perrin and Egwene fall in with the White Cloaks. Maybe they find the Stedding they don't know they have. They fall in with the White Cloaks, and then Elyas in some way kind of saves them. And then we kind of learn about Elyas and the wolves and such, and they make their way to, anyways, that's one way you could have that, where Moraine and Lan and Nynaeve go off to find somebody else, although you'd have to work it out. Rand and Matt don't have to give up their coins, right? That's not like a necessary thing. It's just they do, and this forces Lan and Moraine and Nynaeve to go find the Perrin group. So, but this comes back to this question, and this is where we're going to end the show tonight, which is the Stedding and the race to the Stedding with the Ravens. And we're seeing them we're seeing Perrin and Egwene and Elyas jump between and try to, in essence, go to this place that Elyas is feeling like they need to be. They need to get to the Stedding. He wants to get them to the Stedding. That's where safety is for the wolves and for them, because the Dark One pretty much won't go, and his minions won't go into the Stedding in most cases. Is there any reason to drop out the Stedding in this moment, or do you like that? As we're doing tonight, do you like the Stedding moment as a natural ending point for this episode?
I like this whole push with. I like the whole push with the Ravens. The whole thing to me is just really well done. I like the rush and the stop and the rush and the stop, and then when they get to the Stedding, everything kind of calms down. But it also, because Egwene, whatever, she says she feels like something's lost. So that's kind of your first shot at she's this happens to all the Aes Sedai when they go into Steddings. Anybody who can use the power, it kind of alludes to that right off the bat.
Yeah, this loss of this benefit that she thought that she had,
right,
is important, and then it also brings up this notion of what's a Stedding. It does definitely it brings in the question we'll eventually get to next episode, somewhat. I guess we're not going to really dig into it, but are we going to have the Ogier? And how does that work with the Stedding? And do we need to know much about them? Is there any reason not to include the Stedding at this point? From an adaptation standpoint, do we need this party to get to Whitebridge, or just keep on making their way to Caemlyn? Or do we like this kind of stopping point as far as they stop, and then we have this whole White Cloak interaction? Mary, what's your feeling about this? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, are we keeping White Cloaks, or are we not keeping the White Cloaks?
I believe Art Adaptation said the White Cloaks were staying because it was really quick. I think that when our first episode, we kept them because the second episode, we kept them because there wasn't much that they had to do, and they kind of presented themselves as an interesting part of the world and an interaction that didn't always have to be the Dark One's minions always causing problems. So I think the White Cloaks are still with us in our adaptation. So, and assuming they are, are we keeping them here? And are we going to start off the next episode with this interaction between Perrin and Egwene and the White Cloaks?
Okay, in my notes, I put that this was a really odd place for Children of the Light to show up out in the middle of nowhere. So that's kind of my feeling on this is why are they even there? There's so far they've run into Elyas and the traveling people, and that's it. There's nothing there, and all of a sudden they show up in the Stedding, and so that's kind of what I put in my notes was, well, why are they even here? Why does this have to happen now?
Okay, and maybe that's a good question for the whole panel, which is we should answer that question. So for our next episode that we do when we talk about this, which is decide, are we going to move forward with the White Cloaks here and have this moment, or is there some other obvious kind of pathway to take from this? Because it sounds like we want to keep the Stedding here. It makes a natural place for them to be chased and end up at. But this open question, maybe we leave the show at that open question for us, and we can kind of see what some of the comments are from users, and we'll come back and discuss that the next time. That
cool
work?
With that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so for everyone that's watching, we've gotten to the Stedding. We didn't get to Camelin. I think I put in the advertising of the show. It's like Shadar Logoth to Camelin. Look, we're making our way to Camelin, so technically it works.
It's a big world. It takes time.
It takes time. So we will definitely get to Camelin in the next episode that we do about the live adaptation. Now, so for those that are new to us here or that have been watching but haven't seen us do one of the Amazon Prime announcements, I'd just like to remind you that next week, Amazon Prime will make another announcement. They make them once a month, and I think that's the first Wednesday of each month. We don't know what they're going to announce. They made cast announcements in the last two. They could announce something, and maybe they'll just give us some really fun images and information from all the the filming they've been doing. So that's
more pictures of goats.
More pictures of goats. Yes. Goat sheep trolloc mixes. Maybe we'll get some of that, but I'm hopeful we'll get something substantial. Maybe they'll give us Thom. Who knows what that's going to be. We're going to cover that question of whatever they announce next Wednesday. We're going to do that, and then the following Wednesday we'll come back to this live adaptation that we're doing, and we'll get to Camelin. And so many things happen there and on the way still that we might need to cut. But to the Tinkers, I say goodbye for a while. We lost you, but it sounds like we kept everything else pretty much intact. So for those of you that were a little bit worried. Now, I want to make one last note. We had somebody helping us here on the crew. Ethan, some of you that have called in have met him on the call-in line. He's been great to handle that for us. He's been welcoming people in and taking their information and making it a really smooth experience for them to get into the call and get out. So we just wanted to say, Ethan, we've loved having you as part of the crew. He's going to be gone for a while. He's going to be gone for a couple of years from this area, but when he gets back, hopefully the show is still running and exciting, and we'll bring him back in. But thank you very much, Ethan, for helping us out here at the Dusty Wheel. And that being said, we'll see everyone on Wednesday. Next Wednesday to talk about the Amazon Prime announcement. We look forward to hearing your comments. Please, if you're here, subscribe and let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and we'll keep trying to improve the show and make it a lot better for each one of you. Hey, to my panelists, thank you again for showing up and talking about this and geeking out on the Wheel of Time with us here at the Dusty Wheel. I really appreciate it. Ted, Todd, and Mary, you guys are awesome. So we'll say goodnight. Hey, see you guys. Good night from the Dusty Wheel.